Welcome to the All About Apple Museum in Savona. I'm Alessio and I will introduce you to our areas and story, giving you as well a small introduction and explanation on how this museum works and where the idea came from. Follow me, please. You are now in the first room of museum, what we call the dynamic area, because this is not dedicated to something particular. This is an area that you usually renew. At the moment, there are some clones for the Apple II, but as I mentioned before, this is a flexible area. Apple history starts from this location, where you can see a replica of the Apple I, and we are in year 1976. From this moment on, the expo follows a chronological order. Here, as you may see, there are the main Apple machines from the 70s on, and they are almost exhibited, all switched on and working. Because this is an interactive museum. This is one of the few museums in the world where not only it is allowed to touch the machines, but it is even recommended because the visit must be an experience for the visitors. There are other computer museums in the world where objects are normally exhibited, as in this case, closed in accessible glass cases. The Apple Museum in Savona, instead, is a museum where you can experience and feel. But where does the idea of the museum come from? We are a voluntary association, existing from 16 years, and this means that we are not a profit association. The idea came from a random finding of decommissioned warehouse from a store with Apple products accumulated over 20 years. This number of unsold objects, starting from the 70s, create the initial poll, which was the trigger for the project of creating an exhibition that everyone could see. This is also because in the 70s, in the 80s, Apple products were not widespread like today. They were all way expensive. Many objects have only been dreamed of or desired of or simply unknown. The exhibition includes products that have almost never arrived in Italy, such as the Apple III. It's a machine that has been almost unknown in Italy. Or this peculiar kind of sophisticated toy, an early Android, that was not produced by Apple, but that was sold in combination with the Apple computers, and there was a development and gaming platform for those who wanted to enter the world of computing on this pioneering period. Behind me, you can see this sign, and this is a very particular one because this is the sign that was commissioned by Steve Jobs in the occasion of the introduction of the Apple II, and we are talking about 1977. This is really one of a kind, and in the museum we have many pieces because these come from collectors all over the world who became aware of the existence of the museum and therefore decide to entrust the object to the museum to be shown and seen. I say it once more, the aim of the museum is to show people things, that to make them understand where the objects that we use today come from, because we all have a smartphone in the pocket, but we don't know where these objects come from. For example, please take a look at this oddity, this strange square that most people don't know. This is the first floppy disk in history. It's very big, right? Really a simple storage device, and it was called floppy because it was very soft, and this is not an invention of Apple, it's an invention of IBM. Apple took the idea and made it in a smaller version, these small 5.25-inch floppy disks. This is prehistory. It sounds like entering a tomb where you can find the lost ark, and I do believe this is interesting to understand where the storage media that we use today come from. Here we are in the 80s and we have a gem. You can admire now the first computer that introduced the use of the mouse and the graphical interface. It was called Liza, from the name of Jobs' daughter, and here you can see the original packaging. It was a machine that now I will show you from the inside, which used a cathode ray tube an internal 5 GB hard drive, and a 400 key disk reader. It was a machine that costed $10,000 in the first edition, and was not commercially successful because it was too slow, too expensive, and to cut a long story short, it was a colossal failure. But this project was then resurrected for the following year when the Macintosh was invented, more correctly Macintosh, which you can see here, and it was instead a much cheaper machine because it costed about $2,500. It was fast, as you can see, it's very responsive. And this is the progenitor of a generation that we still use today, because the term Macintosh, which is actually a type of Californian apple, still remains in the name of nowadays Apple computers. We are towards the end of the 80s, and this is the first Macintosh with a color screen, the so-called Macintosh 2 or friendly open Macintosh. And finally it broke the pattern for the first Macintosh, which was very small, compact, closed, with a black and white screen. Here you see is a very large expandable machine with a color screen, and actually this is a version with a smaller screen, but it could support a much larger one. Another innovation you see here is the first laptop. This is a prototype, one of a kind that you can admire here in the museum, and it is perfectly working. A machine that in its final form, which is this, had a battery that lasted almost 10 hours, and however its also weight is several kilos. We can say that the word portable is a little exaggerated, because it really should be defined as movable, because it's really heavy, but it's the first Macintosh computer that could also be used outside of the office. Another gem is this vertical monitor, which is not turned by mistakes, but it's vertical because it was used for layout so that an A4 sheet fits perfectly. Here you can see how it's still very clear after all these years, and it was widely used in typography and all the offices there where there was a need for the desktop publishing. In this period, however, Jobs is no more any longer in Apple, and to try to guess where its interests were at, he created a company on his own called Next. And here you can see one of these products, the Cube. Next machines are very important because with these machines, Jobs could tell the world that he was still present. Due to the exit from Apple, people wondered if he wanted to leave the sector or not. But moreover, these machines are very important because an American engineer brought the first internet browser here, letting the world facing the World Wide Web as we all know now. Here you can see some machines where Apple did not put particular attention on care and aesthetics. These are quite ugly machines, beige, but in the midst of this strange anonymity, there are also great ideas. I will show you, for example, what you are looking at. It seems identical to this, with some little variations, but if I turn it off and press the button, by magic the real computer comes out. This is the real computer, which is in fact a perfectly functional laptop, which is with its own battery and even a color screen. But when I came home or in the office, I have the possibility to insert this in this docking station that electrically receives the power computer, and therefore I can have a larger display, a printer, a scanner at my disposal without connecting any wires. The idea was called the PowerBook Duo Dock Station, and it faced quite a commercial success. There are many oddities among Apple computers, and one of these is the product here, which was called Pippin, and in Italian stands for Mela Ranetta, a kind of apple fruit. This is the only Apple product that does not have an Apple logo and does not have the name Apple written anywhere. It was a game console that was used and produced for the Oriental market. In fact, there was a specific version for Japan. Unfortunately, you can say this from the clear similarity, there was an antagonism with Sony's first PlayStation, which was much better. In fact, this product, despite the fact that it was technically valid, has been suffocated and overtook by the PlayStation, and therefore this is one of the many Apple fiascos that have never arrived on the Italian market. 20 years have passed since Apple was founded, and for the occasion, the company decides to create a beautiful machine, very innovative from the design point of view. In a surrounding reality where there are no particular special machines, Apple came out with the so-called 20-year anniversary Macintosh called TAM. This is an exceptionally flat screen with a futuristic design, and above all, there is an audio system made in collaboration with Bose. This machine has a subwoofer with a remarkable power and an audio system with two tweeters, both on the sides of the computer. With these latter inserts, the object was extremely aggressive and still modern, however, was proposed for passionate people. We are talking a value of about $7,000 in 1997. We are in the end of the 90s and we finally face the return of Steve Jobs in Apple. Jobs managed to return in the company thanks to Apple's need to create an operating system that renews the old and obsolete, outdated macOS 9. And Jobs brings inside Apple the knowledge developed by the time of Next. The software technology will serve as a basic for the current macOS X, but apart from this return in Jobs in Apple is characterized by the introduction of machines that you can see here is the first iMac. Back to the further idea with the all-in-one, but with a completely different design from the past. It was stuck in green beige, as you can see here on the left. Apple past was very anonymous with big cable-filled badge machine. The new version of Apple is aesthetically pleasing, an essential machine of various color of plastic, and therefore, with this type of machine, Jobs wanted to renew the company, and first of all, with the aim to create margin profits. In fact, this machine had a great success, and the company claimed to conquer a slice of the market that have never been lost up to now. Still talking of the Apple revolution, we cannot fail to mention the first iPod. We are here in 2001. Steve Jobs is a great admirer of Sony and its Walkman. We all know the famous cassette player. He wanted a more modern object and, most important, full of song. The first iPod you see here has a 5 gigabyte drive and it can hold 1,000 songs in the pocket, and this is the slogan for which it was advertised. This is the beginning of a new era. Apple opens a new market with digital music, the so-called MP3 music market, and began to earn so much money with this sector that the company slowly begins to change its corporate structure. From a computer manufacturer, it becomes a manufacturer of objects that has also to deal with personal and musical use. The trend started with the iPod, finds its peak in 2007 with the first iPhone, as you see here. The first version did not arrive in Italy because it was a version that worked only in Edge technology. However, on the side you can see the 3G version that have instead reached the Italian market. The iPhone had created a market so strong and so powerful that today it covers the 80% of the Apple's income, with computers which are relegated to a mere 10 or 15% of the turnover. This is also the year in which the Apple computer changes its name. In fact, if we look to our right in the overview of the museum, where you can admire its beauty, at the bottom you can see the sign and the original name that was Apple Computer Incorporated. After the introduction of the iPhone, Apple will no longer be called Apple Computer, but will simply be called Apple Incorporated. There are computers that you love and you never forget, and one of these is the so-called iMac, finally called the iLamp, forgive me, but in our country it was called the MacBook. This is an iMac G4 that has the characteristic of a liquid display that can be moved and positioned, as you can see, with a simple touch of the finger, in any point of the space in 360 degrees of liberty. This particularly aesthetic success object was technically made from this shape because it has the image of the Pixar logo. Pixar is a company that brought Steve Jobs a lot of luck since he bought it from George Lucas, and therefore he wanted to tribute this company for the computer that lasted in Apple history. Among the professional machines, we cannot forget these two that are placed next to one of each other. Here on the left you have the PowerBook G4 Titanium, an exceptional laptop made out of very thin, light titanium steel, that achieved a great commercial success. And on the other side, we have the very well-known PowerBook G5 with the Apple Cinema display, a huge screen for the time, really big. This machine was particular because it has a great aesthetic cleanness, great technology order, and was cooled by 9 fans that, however, work very, very slowly in order not to make noise. Now, if I remove the cover that channels the airflow, we hear the 9 fans starting at maximum speed because the sensor, I've noticed that I have removed the channel plexiglass screen. Now if I restore the flow of air that comes from the front to the back inside, it's almost back to being unlistenable. What you have seen in this video is just the tip of the iceberg. Here there are many products shown, and in addition the museum is dynamic. It's constantly updated. One particular thing I recommend to all who come to visit the museum is come and ask for the guided tour. The simple visit to the museum is already interesting by its own, and we have an application in both Android and the iPhone that helps the visitor, but having a guiding person by your side, explaining behind the scenes, the anecdotes and curiosities of Apple history is real something else, and the reviews we have received testify this. So please come and visit the museum. Museum is normally open on weekends, but on our website here there are listed the openings and the prices. Thank you very much for your attention.